On. Okay. Hello. Have you been involved in Poetry Club at Ball State? Well, have you write any like poems while attending your English class? Have you ever heard of boy, boys or have used them before? If you have say either yes or no to these three questions, then I'm here today to explain what these terms are and how they are useful to our lives, especially to our English classes. By the end by the end of the speech, you will be able to use these terms and be able to understand how to use it and adapt them to to our English career as we go through college. But before I could go through any details, we need to know what poetry is first and review poetry and what poetry is, because a lot of us are familiar with poetry but not voice. So let's start with voice first. The definition of voice is spoken or written language as in ordinary usage, distinguished from poetry by its lack of a marked metrical structure. Voice can be used in a spoken matter in a Tetris style, or written down in a Tetris language like Old French style, something like that. Now, poetry, we are familiar with that. So let's go with the definition of that. Poetry is written that formulates a concentrate imaginative awareness of experience in language chosen and arranged to create a specific emotional response through meaning, sound, and rhythm. Now, yeah, we all know what that means. Now that you have know the definition of the two terms, let's go into deep depths of them and learn the difference between those two. So let's dive in. In voice, there are four different types of voice, which I'm gonna list the definition of that type. Starting with fictional, non-fictional, heroic, and poetic. Starting with fictional. Fictional is more like a makeup world that turns into a story. So we are familiar with the Hunger Games. The Hunger Games is a great example of that fictional world. Non-fictional, the factual accounts of events. So let's think of the Diary of Anne Frank. That's all fictional. Non-fictional, I mean, sorry. Fictional facts based on her diary. Heroic is full of oral and written tradition. So like lullabies and Lydia. So like the tortoise in the hare be a better example for that. Idioms. And parodic is written with poetic qualities such as heightened emotions and imagery that is not written in verse. So poems. We think about that. Poise is more used from novels, right here. For example, novels to articles, which are completely different from a poetic theme. It is more of a writing structure, including sentences, paragraphs, and chapters. These factors are being used for themes, mood, point of view, plot, and setting. That is another major difference between the two. Now, on to poetry. There are eight, eight different types of poetries that we are pretty much familiar with or not, that I'm going to talk about. Starting with sonnet. is a lyrical poetry with a 14-line arrangement. Pretty much some of us know what it is, but like me, I do not even know what a sonnet is. Haiku is a traditional Japanese poetry. We've probably heard of that before. A mixtures, letters, and phrases. Free verse, no set meter means you can write whatever you want down and claim it as poetry. Epic, from oral traditions. Rhyme, create specific rhyme patterns in patterns. Descriptive, using descriptive language to express a message. And narrative is pretty much just you're telling us a story. I think that's more like a similarity between the two terms, but it's more like leaning, but it's more like in the middle of it. Poetry is more like written in an artistic style and more using style imagery and rhyme. While prose is more into sentences and paragraphs, poetry is all about using your emotions to express through lines, stanzas, verses, meter, stress, patterns, and rhyme. This is more offered by the events and the feeling that the writer may have been expressing to the event and jotted down. So that's like the major difference is the feeling and the emotions. And this is all stated and retrieved from yourdictionary.com, which has a topic about the key difference and key similarities between prose and poetry. And as for the definitions, I got them from freedictionary.com for prose and Merriam-Webster for poetry. So, after diving into the details of that, let's wrap it up with some little small talks and little more facts being tossed in before we close out. For your support, it's more like you jotting down a story about a world that is based on facts or just made up from your mind. We kind of use this almost every day without even realizing it or even noticing it by one bit. But to focus on our writing skills, we need to improve more of our imagination. And what are we talking about through that? For poetry, it's a lot more about emotions based on the events that's happening. But for us, we need a way to express it through writing and lines, stanzas, etc. But the big major difference between these two terms is the use of emotion and expression through an event. So the event is pretty much similar to the two, but the way it is transcribed is the big difference. So we have reached the end of our lesson, and I hope tonight, or I could say tonight, you have learned something from this speech and have gained the knowledge and learning about the difference between prose and poetry. It will guarantee in helping you the next time that you're in your English class, you're stuck on assignment about whatever that involves like make it up or actually use facts or actually based on these two terms alone. Or writing, or you feel like writing your free time, just like me, I write in my free time, or feel like writing in free time. Make sure that you understand the difference between these two terms and how you use it and describe it in your writing next time. Believe me, using these two terms by learning the difference and forming that into your writing, it will help you do in the long run as you go to college or going through life itself. Okay? Thanks for watching. Bye.